Godzilla vs. Kong. I'm going to do this outline a little differently. I'm going to write my hopes of what I want them to include in the final version after the outline. This video was requested and I already had an idea of what I wanted for Godzilla vs. Kong in an overview. In that prior video I mentioned that if they don't include the skull crawlers as the main antagonists, I'd hope for a Biollante as the main antagonist. Though seeing as this is my own Monsterverse timeline, here's what I would do. I would make the skull crawlers the main threat of this particular movie. At the start of the movie, I'd introduce Mechagodzilla testing and introduce the pilots, and we learn of Monarch's plans and reasons for being on the island. With Mark Russell investigating the effects of Mothra's close proximity to his daughter, she reports hearing thoughts, and is being tested for potential traits of telepathy with other children who have been in close contact with Titans. Here throughout the movie, we'll be seeing little tidbits of the children and their powers as they begin to grow and get comfortable with them. The island is now codenamed Monster Island and is the only reachable entrance to the Hollow Earth. This section is from my Monsterverse section, and I'd like to keep that in. Well, in this version, I'm swapping the ideas and keeping the Kong 2 ideas, only swapping out Biollante for the skull crawlers. And that's not to say that there won't be more than one antagonist. In this, we learn that Mechagodzilla is being used to herd the monsters arriving on the island. Kong's not liking all the newcomers as it's starting to wake up the skull crawlers. Mechagodzilla is able to calm some of the Titans with remnants of the Orca after a brief battle. We hear Kong in the distance roar. A swarm of skull crawlers emerge and begin to attack the new Titans and Kong. Mechagodzilla is called in to fight the skull crawlers, and one is captured during the fight and brought back to the Skull Island Monarch base. The battle ends as the skull crawlers are seemingly called back by an unknown frequency. From here we see Mark Russell mention how they are being called back as if they were a colony, and that potentially there is some sort of hive queen out there under the earth. During the discussion, reports are brought in that Godzilla has changed his course to Monster Island after hearing the call that retreated the skull crawlers. They also hear of Jonah Allen's terrorist group recruiting and moving to remote areas, unable to be located and be out of Monarch's jurisdiction. Mark scoffs and asks if there's any good news, to which is responded with, "At least the Mechagodzilla test went well." We go to the pilots of the mech, talking with the mechanics about the controls, and learn a little bit about the team behind Mechagodzilla. We begin to hear the pilots call to a confidential meeting with leadership of Monarch and U.S. military. They wanted to congratulate the pilots and their team on their success, but warn them that they believe one of Jonah's agents may have infiltrated and begin to keep an eye out for any suspicious personnel. All the files of the staff seem to check out, and finding the mole seems just to put the senior officers on a wild goose chase. It isn't until some missing ordnance is called in with the Armory Sergeant-at-Arms dead. They begin to lock down and roll call of all members and personnel, to which they find more than 6 staff missing. They begin to go through the quarters and send recon drones to search the island for this team. As the missing staff's rooms are searched, they uncover a plot to wake up all the skull crawlers and find the queen of the skull crawlers, while the surface is engulfed in the swarm. Teams are dispatched to locate the missing team and arrest them. The team is discovered by the Kong graveyard as security teams are helicoptered in. As they reach the entrance, Godzilla emerges on the radar, arriving on the island. The team has set explosives around the entrances as they begin to move into an ancient cave that seems to be man-built. The team, too late, decides to hover away from the explosives as they explode. Godzilla arrives at the boneyard as Kong moves to investigate the ruckus. Kong, angered, beats his chest and charges Godzilla, infiltrating on the bones of his clan. Godzilla, in defense, tries to blast him away with his ray, to which Kong dodges but is grazed. He hides behind some cover and pulls up a giant rock out in front of him and charges again, this time throwing the rock at Godzilla. The fight turns into a brawl as Monarch goes into full panic and calls in any available naval support. Their theory is that the skull crawlers are getting ready to move off the island. The fight between Godzilla and Kong moves towards the ocean as Mechagodzilla's crew begin to board, preparing to calm the two Titans. Kong seems to be getting the upper hand in the initial engagement. Godzilla is pushed back into the water as Godzilla grabs Kong and falls into the water. They begin to fight in the water, where Godzilla gets the upper hand. Kong manages to grab hold of a giant rock and make his way back to the surface, where a huge carrier appears. Kong climbs on this ship and is moved to dock to the land. Godzilla climbs on as well, and this is the giant Monarch ship, which is meant to carry Mechagodzilla around. The fight continues there as Kong is thrown back into the water. Godzilla dives in after Kong, who manages to get back on land waiting for Godzilla. He grabs a tree as Godzilla appears out of the water. Kong begins to retreat and Godzilla pursues. As Godzilla turns a corner, he is hit in the face with a giant tree, and then tackled by Kong. Godzilla kicks Kong up and back. Kong goes back behind rock cover, avoiding another Godzilla blast, and climbs up to surprise Godzilla. He jumps up towards a seemingly caught off guard Godzilla, but is knocked back by Godzilla's tail. As Kong hits the ground, Godzilla's tail is pulled by Kong, which sweeps him off his feet. Kong jumps on Godzilla again, as Godzilla headbutts Kong. Godzilla grabs hold of Kong and rolls with him, hitting him against the rock. As Godzilla and Kong are about to engage again, they hear the roar of Mechagodzilla and are both confused. We pan back to Monarch's control room on the island and their radar is going nuts. Mechagodzilla turns back to see swarms of skullcrawlers pouring out of the surface. Here we follow the team sent in to search the caves for the missing team. They make their way through a labyrinth of tunnels and see writings on the wall. It's written in an ancient Eevee language, but in the control room watching their cameras, one of the staff tries to translate some of the images, while fascinated on discovering the caves earlier. While Kong and Godzilla begin to fight the swarming skullcrawlers with Mechagodzilla, we pan back to the tunnel security team. They find that they are in a huge cavern, which when asked if this cavern is where the skullcrawlers live, they are told that they are actually above it. They see ancient ruined structures and an ambient light source in the distance. As they sneak their way around skullcrawler patrols, they realize that the captured skullcrawler in their base is female. At the light source is a giant serpent that outstretches Godzilla in length by 2. Chen comes in to let them know that their research has translated some of the text found on the wall. The guardian Manda is a male protector of an ancient gateway, the sleeping beast, and from the sleeping beast, children hybrids were made known as daemons, who give birth to the unspoken, which we learn are the skullcrawlers. The team is spotted by skullcrawlers as they begin to defend from the ruins, fending off 3 skullcrawlers. They find signs of the missing team running towards the light source, which looks like a pyramid in the distance. With an ambient light at the top, we see the first daemon giving birth behind the pyramid to a skullcrawler, as more skullcrawlers move to protect the daemon. The daemon is nearly the size of Kong and Godzilla, and is glowing as well. The security team hurries inside the pyramid as stragglers are picked off. On the surface, the rest of the Titans have engaged the skullcrawlers, as they are swarming in all directions. The Monarch base begins to bombard some of the skullcrawlers. As the base closes its shields, the skullcrawlers begin to flank the base from a less dangerous path. In the pyramid, the team discovers that the missing team before them had activated the pyramid and is now heating up. They follow the path underneath and lead them to an opening to another larger cavern. In the distance, they see 2 of the missing team running to the other side of what seems to be a 2-mile stretch to the other side of the cavern. But the ends seem to be infinite, with piles of bones all around them of even more ancient kaiju, even the giant Kong species. We see another daemon going towards a lower cavern. They notice there is a trench that leads to the other side that the other team took. They follow them in. In the Monarch control room, we learn the plans weren't meant to wake the skullcrawlers and their queen. It was meant to wake up their sleeping king, who blocks the entrance of an even bigger cavern system that dwarfs the one they are in. As the security team follows into the trench, some of them are grabbed, and they begin to crawl to avoid being grabbed by the other skullcrawlers. We pan between the Monarch base being attacked to Godzilla and Kong pushing the fight into the caverns, where they encounter the first daemon. The explosion that the missing team members had set off has now allowed Godzilla and Kong entrance into the cavern, and swarms of skullcrawlers retreat to protect the daemon. Godzilla and Mechagodzilla are fighting off the swarms as Kong charges the daemon. In the control room, we discover more as Chen admits that their first theory of the skullcrawlers are completely wrong. The findings from the caged skullcrawler confirms that the skullcrawlers are man-made, synthetic replicas of the sleeping giant Manda, but with legs, and that Manda was the gatekeeper of the underworld. Daemons were poor replicas designed to hunt and overrun Titans in ancient days, but may have been trapped underground. Only the small ones could go out because most of the caverns were too small. In the control room, they noticed that they were not digging, but instead trying to run. These creatures were not built for digging, they were built for speed. The security team discovers the other hidden team cornered by another ancient pyramid surrounded by skullcrawlers, but after a moment, they notice that the skullcrawlers were not charging. In the lowest cavern, they are surrounded by magma, but notice a green river in which skullcrawlers seem to be coming out of. The smell is foul, and the heat is almost unbearable. This cavern is well lit, and there are no signs of daemons. They begin to climb into a safe spot until they see off in the distance 3 small 4-man subs, which looks like it was meant for the team to evacuate on. Chen goes on to say that they must have found a water cavern system so small that the skullcrawlers couldn't follow, but that they were able to find it means Jonah knows more about the underground cavern through other means than the uncertain staff. We see Kong beat and kill a daemon, only for 3 more daemons to appear from the lower caverns. we see Mechagodzilla take some damage from the initial Daemon charge. Godzilla moves in to intercept with Kong. Madison comes in, hoping to try and link with Godzilla and Kong. Mechagodzilla preps a nuke and sets it next to Godzilla, as Mechagodzilla's legs are torn off by the Daemons. Godzilla notices the nuke and roars to Kong, to which Kong begins to pull Mechagodzilla out while being linked to Madison. With the pilot dead, the co-pilot shoots remaining ordnance at the Daemons as Kong pulls the mech out. Monarch warns the team inside to get the subs quickly. As the last of the two from the missing team activates some sort of mechanism, the Skullcrawlers begin to flee. The cavern begins to rumble, rocks start to fall down as the remaining security team makes their way to the subs. Against the fleeing Skullcrawlers, they change and move to rescue the two missing crew members as they might be key in their transport. Madison Russell finds her dad and lets him know that she can now make up the thoughts, as all she hears from her thoughts are "he is awake." Chen moves to her and asks if she can communicate to Godzilla that Manda is awake. The nukes go off as we see Mechagodzilla's co-pilot try to pilot the system herself. Godzilla comes out of the debris, and Madison attempts to warn Kong of the effects. The island begins to rumble as Manda pulls out of the earth with a daemon in its mouth. The other two daemon begin to attack this colossal titan as it wraps around them, crushing them. Godzilla begins an attack on Manda as the other daemon are killed. Kong moves to fight Manda as well. As Mechagodzilla is prepared for a death run, Madison reports that Godzilla might not be able to win this fight alone. The fight is brutal and quick as the other titans begin to fight Manda. Madison reports that Manda is not a real titan, but genetically altered synthetic titan. The only way to beat it is to go back inside and deactivate it from wherever it was activated from. The sub-team reports that it's flooded with magma. Mechagodzilla activates its boosters and makes its way back into the cavern and lands nearby. The co-pilot then makes her way to the console and begins to show the image to the control room, and they improvise translations for quick deciphering of the console and manages to deactivate Manda in time. The Mechagodzilla operator notices an opening from where Manda was dormant. We see Godzilla call to eliminate the remaining Skullcrawlers just as they reach Monarch Space's main gates. Here we conclude with a meeting that takes place a few weeks later, with the rest of leaders of Monarch, including two returning characters as older versions of themselves from Skull Island, watching news about the discovery of the Inner Earth. Here we learn that the Skullcrawlers were in fact manufactured and designed inside those caverns, where those old ruins are now in rubble. Then we hear Monarch give a brief mention of what is known about the Inner Earth. We are given teasers about other titans, and that it is riddled with radiation. Suits are now being designed for the passage and are planning for exploring in the next few years. The co-pilot of Mechagodzilla is now in recovery, talking to Madison, who she tells of another titan she saw in the distance. Madison looks to her and mentions that Chen told her a story from a while ago about a turtle who carries the world on his shoulders, one she calls Gamera. From here we see the pilot walk back to the hangars of the base to see a new series of mechs being built under the codename Jaegers. She names her next mech Jet, after her deceased pilot comrade. Here's where it ends and preps for a potential future Monsterverse with crossovers. I doubt that the movie will actually be like this, so here are my main hopes and a checklist for the movie. First, I do hope that Skullcrawlers are man-made by ancient humans perhaps 12,000 years ago. Second, I don't want multiple engagements between Kong and Godzilla. I think one is enough, and hopefully not longer than a 10-minute fight, as it would be a waste not to bring in other titans to fight. Third, I am hoping for an Anguirus to show up and fight. And lastly, I think setting up for Biollante and Destroya would be the best way to go, leaving Mechagodzilla for the next phase. Keeping in mind that perhaps a cameo is actually not a bad idea for this film to set up for the next movie. And that concludes this video. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments. What would you change? What did you like? And let me know if you want any more videos. Lord Commander Guts, aka Mike G, signing off. See you guys.